Here is the truth that no one in your life has been brave enough to say to you directly. The reason they have been fighting you so hard, the reason the opposition has felt so personal, so relentless, so disproportionate to anything you have actually done, is not because you are weak. It is because something standing behind you is so powerful that the people and forces working against you have been reacting to what they sense, not to what they see. They have never been fighting you. They have been trembling at what is behind you. And they could not stop themselves from attacking because they could not stop themselves from being afraid. That is not a comfortable thing to hear. Because if it is true, it means the last several years of your life, the closed doors, the betrayals, the silence from people you trusted, the seasons where you felt completely invisible and completely targeted at the same time, none of that was random. None of it was deserved. And none of it was a sign that God had forgotten your name. It was a sign that something so significant is attached to your life that the opposition organized itself around you before you even understood what you were carrying. Beloved and chosen one, you need to stay with me in this moment. I need you to hear this not as encouragement, not as the kind of soft reassurance that fades by tomorrow morning. I need you to hear this as a report, as information that changes how you read everything that has already happened to you and everything that is coming. There are people who experience life in a way that others simply do not. You may have noticed this about yourself without having the language for it. You feel things at a depth that seems disproportionate. You have walked into rooms and sensed something that no one else seemed to pick up. You have had moments of knowing, not thinking, not hoping, but knowing that something was approaching, something was shifting, something was about to break open, and then you watched it happen. And then you wondered if you were imagining things, and then it happened again. There are specific signs that mark the ones who carry divine backing, and I want to name them for you now, because you need to recognize yourself in this list. The first sign is that your dreams have been sharper lately. Not louder, sharper, more specific. You are waking up with a feeling you cannot fully name, but that lingers past breakfast, past noon, sometimes past the whole day. Something is being communicated to you while you sleep that your waking mind has not yet fully received. The second sign is that certain relationships have been ending without dramatic confrontations. People who were once fixtures in your daily life have simply drifted, or pulled back, or shown you something about themselves that made you understand with quiet sadness that they cannot go where you are going. This has felt like loss. It is actually a clearing. The third done sign is that you have been carrying a frustration that you cannot fully explain to the people around you. It is not depression. It is not ingratitude. It is a sense of pressure from the inside, like something in you has outgrown the container you are currently living in and is pressing against the walls, looking for the expansion that has not yet arrived. That frustration is not a disorder. It is a signal. The fourth sign is that opposition has come from directions you did not expect, not from strangers, from people close to you. People who should have been celebrating you have instead found reasons to minimize you, to question your direction, to remind you of your history when you were trying to focus on your future. And you have felt the particular sting of being misunderstood by the people whose understanding should have been guaranteed. The fifth sign is that in the middle of all of this, there have been moments of inexplicable peace. Moments where everything around you was still difficult, still unresolved, still pressing, and yet something inside you went quiet in a way that made no logical sense. That peace was not denial. That peace was a presence. Something standing behind you, holding what you could not hold, steadying what you could not steady, standing watch when you were too tired to stand. Chosen one, you are not here by accident. This message did not reach you because an algorithm served it up at random. You are the kind of person for whom the word chosen is not a metaphor. It is a description. It is a designation. You are an earth angel in the truest sense of what that means. Someone who came into this world carrying light that was meant to shift something, heal something, build something, open something that has been closed for far too long. Heaven has not been silent about you. Heaven has been moving on your behalf in ways you were not yet positioned to see. And now, the very ones who stood against you, the very forces that pushed back hardest, have seen something shift. They have seen who is standing behind you. And what you are witnessing in their reaction, their retreat, their sudden distance, their nervous energy around you, is not confusion. It is trembling. You have not been waiting for this moment. This moment has been waiting for you. There is something you have been carrying in your chest for longer than you have admitted to anyone, including yourself. It is not quite grief. It is not quite anger. It sits somewhere between the two, in a place that does not have a clean name, in a place that surfaces at the wrong moments. While you are driving, while you are washing dishes, while you are smiling at someone and saying that everything is fine. You have become remarkably good at saying that everything is fine. And the exhaustion of that performance is something no one around you has fully seen. I want to name what you are feeling, not to pull you back into it, but because something powerful happens when the thing you have been silently carrying is finally spoken out loud by someone who was not there and could not have known. It becomes lighter, not because the situation changes, but because you are no longer alone in the room with it. Here is the first thing I want to name. At some point recently, and it may have happened more than once, you were hit by a wave of sadness that had no clear origin. You were not thinking about anything particularly painful. You were not revisiting a memory you had chosen to revisit. It simply arrived. A sudden heavy grief about time, about things that did not happen the way you believed they would, about a version of your life that you had quietly let go of without ever holding a proper funeral for it. You wiped your eyes, or you breathed through it, or you pushed it down and kept moving, but it was real. And it was not weakness. That wave is what happens when a season is genuinely ending, and your spirit knows it before your mind has caught up. The second thing I want to name is that certain familiar places and certain familiar people have started to feel strange to you. Not hostile, not dramatically different, just heavy, like a coat that used to fit and no longer does. Conversations that used to feel easy now feel like work. Environments you used to find comfortable now leave you feeling vaguely unsettled. Like you are visiting somewhere you used to live rather than somewhere you belong. You have wondered if something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. You are simply no longer the same person who first walked into those rooms. And some part of you knows it even when the rest of you is not ready to say it out loud. The third thing I want to name is the dream. It may not always be the same dream, but there is a recurring image, a recurring feeling of a door. Sometimes it is a door you are standing in front of. Sometimes it is a door you can see from a distance. Sometimes you reach for the handle and wake up before you know what is on the other side. This is not an ordinary dream. It is your spirit processing the threshold you are standing at in real time. The door is real. The opening is real. The fact that you keep dreaming about, it is not coincidence. It is confirmation. The fourth thing I want to name is the repetition. The same message keeps finding you. In a sermon, in a stranger's conversation you were not supposed to overhear, in a song that came on at exactly the right moment. in a paragraph of a book you almost did not open, in a comment someone left that seemed written directly for you. The same theme, the same word, the same reassurance arriving through different mouths and different channels. You noticed it. You filed it away. And then it happened. Again. That repetition is not coincidence. That is heaven being persistent, because you are worth being persistent toward. Now I want to sit with you in the part that is harder to say, because I am not here to rush past the pain into the promise. I want to honor what this season has actually cost you. The insomnia is real. The nights where your mind refuses to settle, where you lie in the dark rehearsing conversations that already happened, or conversations you are afraid are coming, where sleep feels like something other people get to have. That is real, and it has been exhausting. The loneliness is real, not loneliness of being alone, but the specific loneliness of being surrounded by people and still feeling like no one is seeing the actual you, the you that is straining towards something, the you that is carrying more than anyone around you seems to understand. The feeling of being wronged is real. There are situations in your history where the outcome was not fair, where you did the right thing and it did not protect you, where you were loyal and it was not returned, where you showed up fully and were met with indifference or worse, with active sabotage. That happened. I am not going to tell you that you imagined it or that you need to reframe it away. I am going to tell you that it happened. It was wrong, and you are still standing. That is not nothing. That is everything. The feeling of being misunderstood is perhaps the deepest of all, because being misunderstood by strangers is one thing. Being misunderstood by the people who should know you, being reduced to a version of yourself that does not account for the depth you carry, that particular pain has a texture that does not fully go away. And yet, chosen one, I need to offer you a shift in how you hold all of this. There is a difference between being overlooked and being positioned. These two things feel identical from the inside. They produce similar emotions. They create similar circumstances. A person who is overlooked and a person who is positioned can both find themselves in the same quiet room, doing work that no one seems to notice, waiting for recognition that has not arrived. The difference is not visible in the moment. The difference is revealed in what the waiting was for. When you are overlooked, the silence around your gifts is a neglect. When you are positioned, the silence around your gifts is a protection, because there are assignments that would be destroyed by premature attention. There are callings that require obscurity in the formation stage, so that when the visibility comes, the foundation is strong enough to hold it. What you have been experiencing is not neglect. You have been in formation, protected and prepared, in a season where being seen too early would have been more dangerous than being seen too late. This means that the waiting you have been living inside is not a punishment. It is not evidence that your prayers are going unanswered. It is not proof that you were wrong about what you felt called toward. The waiting is a repositioning, and you are not at the end of it because you finally did enough, or prayed enough, or proved enough. You are at the end of it because the appointed time has arrived, the season has shifted, and the ones who were standing against you can feel it even if you cannot yet see it fully. That is why they are trembling. That is why the atmosphere around you has changed. Something behind you has become undeniable to the very forces that hoped you would give up before this moment arrived. You did not give up. You are still here, and that matters more than you know. If you are reading these words and something in your chest recognized itself in what I just described, I want you to type the word "ready" in the comments right now. Not because it is a ritual, Because naming where you are is the first act of stepping into where you are going. Type ready if this season described your last several months. Type it if the insomnia is real. Type it if the loneliness is real. Type it if you felt the wave of grief and did not know what to do with it. Type it if you keep having the dream. You are not alone in that room. There are thousands of chosen ones who have arrived at this exact message in this exact season. And when you type that word, you are reaching across the invisible thread that connects all of you. And if this message has already done something in you, if it has named something that needed to be named, if it has given language to something you have been carrying in silence, I want to gently ask you to consider supporting this channel. Not because content requires funding in some abstract sense, but because of the work of reaching chosen ones who are sitting in their cars, lying on their floors, pressing through Monday mornings without anyone to name it for them. That work takes time and intention and resources to sustain. If you feel led, there is a donation link available, and every contribution, no matter how small, goes directly toward keeping this message alive and moving toward the person who needs it next. You can also like this video, share it with someone who is in a silent season right now, and subscribe so that the next message finds you when the next season arrives. These are small acts with disproportionate reach, and I believe you understand that better than most, because you are someone who knows what it means to do something small that carries a significance far beyond its size. You are not abandoned. You are not overlooked. You are not delayed. You are positioned, and the positioning is almost complete. Something shifts when you stop waiting for the feeling to arrive and start giving the feeling somewhere to land. That is what this part is about. Not theory. Not more language for what you are carrying. A specific, practical protocol that you can begin today in the space you are already sitting in, with nothing more than what you already have inside you. Because one of the things that happens in a long season of waiting is that the body forgets what it feels like to move with intention. The mind stays busy, the emotions stay active, but intentional forward motion. The kind that comes from a place of alignment rather than anxiety, that can go quiet for months. And when it goes quiet for too long, you can start to mistake stillness for stagnation. You can start to read the absence of visible progress as the absence of movement altogether. But something has been moving beneath the surface of your life this entire time. And what this practice does is bring you into conscious contact with that movement so that you stop fighting against the current you are actually meant to be riding. Before I give you the 3 steps, I want to say something about the nature of practice itself. There is a version of spiritual practice that is built entirely on intensity. Longer prayers, harder fasting, more effort, more striving, as if the breakthrough is located somewhere on the other side of sufficient strain. And there is value in discipline. I am not dismissing that, but what I have come to understand about the specific kind of chosen one who is drawn to a message like this one is that you have already done the straining. You have already pressed. You have already given more than could reasonably be asked of any one person in a single season. What you need now is not more effort. What you need is alignment. And alignment is not achieved through force. It is achieved through attunement. You do not force a tuning fork into the right frequency. You strike it gently and let it find its own resonance. That is exactly what this practice is designed to do. The tool I am giving you today has a simple name. I want you to call it the Threshold Protocol. It is called the Threshold Protocol because it is designed to be practiced at the edge of something, at the edge of the day, at the edge of a decision, at the edge of the season you are leaving and the season you are entering. It does not require a special environment. It does not require silence, though silence helps. It does not require previous experience with meditation or prayer in any formal sense. It requires only your willingness to show up for yourself for 7 minutes with your full attention. That is all. And if 7 minutes sounds too small to matter, I want you to hold that thought until the end of this section, because the science of what happens in 7 minutes of intentional attunement is something that is going to reframe everything you thought you understood about how transformation actually works. Step 1 of the threshold protocol is this. Before anything else, before you close your eyes or settle your breathing, I want you to remember something that did not happen. This sounds strange, so let me be precise. I want you to identify one specific thing in your recent past, something in the last year or the last several years that you feared was going to happen and then did not. It does not have to be dramatic. It could be a health scare that resolved. It could be a financial collapse that you felt approaching and then somehow did not arrive. It could be a relationship ending that you were certain was coming and then, for reasons you still do not fully understand, did not end. It could be a moment where you felt yourself on the very edge of a breaking point and something held. Something internal or external or both held the line, and you did not fall over the edge you were standing at. I want you to bring that specific thing to the front of your mind. Hold it there. Not with analysis, not with the instinct to immediately explain why it happened or what it means. Just hold it. And then I want you to allow yourself to feel, genuinely and without deflection, what it means that it did not happen. The relationship that almost ended and did not means that a love you needed was preserved for you. The financial crisis that almost swallowed you and did not means that provision moved on your behalf in ways you may have attributed to luck or circumstance, but which I am asking you to consider attributing to protection. The breakdown that almost took you and did not mean that you were being held even in the moment when you felt most alone and most exposed. This is the foundation of step 1. Gratitude not for what you received, but for what was withheld from you. Gratitude for the disaster that turned away at the door. Gratitude for the harm that approached and then stopped. Because when you make contact with that specific kind of gratitude, something opens in you that generic thankfulness does not reach. You touch the part of your history that carries evidence of divine backing. You find the fingerprints of the one who is standing behind you, not in the blessings you can list, but in the destructions you cannot fully explain. That contact is the beginning of alignment. That is step 1. Step 2 is a statement, not a prayer in the traditional sense, though it can become one. Not an affirmation in the performative sense, though it carries the power of one. It is a declaration that is specifically tied to your understanding of time, and I am giving it to you in this exact form because the words matter. The statement is this: I am not behind. I am exactly where the appointed moment requires me to be, and what is ordained for me is already in motion. Say it again if you need to. I am not behind. I am exactly where the appointed moment requires me to be, and what is ordained for me is already in motion. I want to tell you why these words are structured this way. One of the deepest wounds of a long waiting season is the sense of being behind where you should be, behind where your peers are, behind where a younger version of yourself expected to arrive by now. And that sense of being behind creates a specific kind of internal pressure that actually works against the alignment you are trying to enter. Because when you are operating from the belief that you are behind, every action you take carries the energy of catching up, of compensating, of trying to close a gap, And that energy is exhausting, and it is also slightly dishonest, because the timeline you are measuring yourself against was never the actual timeline. The actual timeline is not the one your peers are living. It is not the one your parents modeled. It is not the one a culture built around efficiency and early achievement would assign to you. The actual timeline is the one that is written into your specific assignment. And that timeline does not run on the same clock as everything else around you. When you make this declaration in step 2, you are not denying the difficulty of the wait. You are refusing to accept a false frame that has been causing you unnecessary pain. You are stepping out of chronological time and into something older and more precise. You are saying out loud to your own nervous system and to every spiritual atmosphere around you that you understand the distinction between being late and being appointed. And that declaration, made sincerely, shifts something. Not metaphorically. Something actually shifts in the energy you carry into the rest of your day. Step 3 is 7 minutes of silence. And I want to be very specific about what I mean by that, because silence has a quality that I do not want you to miss. This is not 7 minutes of trying not to think. Trying not to think is one of the least effective and most frustrating spiritual practices ever invented by well-meaning people, and it has caused more chosen ones to feel like they are failing at their own inner life than almost anything else. This is not that. This is 7 minutes of receptive attention. Passive openness. The difference is this. In trying not to think, you are still in a posture of effort. You are doing something, which is the suppression of thought. In receptive attention, you are not doing anything. You are simply being available. You are sitting in the space between your inhale and your exhale and making yourself to whatever is already moving in and around you. During these 7 minutes, you may notice images. You may notice a feeling of warmth or expansion in your chest. You may notice a specific word or name or direction that rises without being summoned. You may notice nothing, except that by the time 7 minutes has passed, something in your body has released a tension it was holding without your permission. All of these are valid. All of these are the practice working. There is no version of this 7 minutes that is done incorrectly, as long as you are present for it without agenda. Now, I want to tell you something about the science of what happens inside 7 minutes of intentional stillness, because this is where the ancient and the modern meet in a way that I find genuinely remarkable. The human brain operates across a range of frequencies. These frequencies are not metaphors. They are measurable, documented, specific electrical patterns that determine what state of consciousness the brain is in at any given moment. When you are in a state of high stress, of urgency, of the kind of mental noise that a long waiting season produces almost continuously, your brain is operating predominantly in beta frequencies. Beta is useful. It keeps you alert and functional. But it is also the frequency of anxiety, of hypervigilance, of the exhausting mental loop that replays old wounds and rehearses future fears. What happens during 7 minutes of receptive silence is that your brain has the opportunity to shift. It begins to move toward theta frequencies, which sit in the range of 4 to 8 cycles per second, and which are associated with deep creativity, accelerated learning, intuitive knowing, and the kind of open receptivity that allows information to arrive from places your analytical mind would normally filter out. And beyond theta, in the rare moments of genuine stillness, the brain can briefly access gamma frequencies, which researchers have documented in the brains of long-term meditators, of people in states of profound insight, and of individuals who report experiences of what can only be described as contact with something larger than themselves. 7 minutes is not a random number. It is the threshold at which the brain begins to complete this shift. It is the minimum effective dose of intentional stillness. And the reason I am building this practice into the foundation of what I am offering you is that everything that follows in this message, every promise, every shift, every area that is about to open up in your life, lands more fully and more permanently in a brain that has practiced this kind of receptive attunement. You are not just doing a spiritual exercise. You are preparing the neurological ground for what is coming to take root. So here is what I am asking you to do today. Not tomorrow. Not when the circumstances feel more conducive. Today. Find 7 minutes. Sit down. Complete step 1 by bringing to mind one thing that did not happen and feeling what it means that it did not. Move into step 2 by speaking the declaration out loud, even in a whisper, even if it feels strange to say it to an empty room. And then enter step 3, 7 minutes of receptive silence, available, open, not striving, not performing, simply present. The threshold protocol is yours. It costs you nothing except the 7 minutes you would otherwise spend scrolling, worrying, or waiting for permission to begin. And what it opens is the doorway to everything this message is pointing you toward. The brain frequency shift that step 3 initiates is the same frequency that researchers have spent decades studying, that has been documented in the most creatively alive and cognitively powerful human beings on record, and that connects the science of your transformation to the spiritual reality of who you actually are and what is actually standing behind you. We are going to go deeper into that science now, because the chosen ones who are drawn to this message are not people who accept things on sentiment alone. You want to understand. You want the mechanism, and the mechanism is extraordinary. What you just practiced in those 7 minutes is not a coincidence of modern wellness culture. It is the rediscovery of something that has always been true about the way chosen ones are wired. And now, I want to give you the science behind what your spirit has already known. Because there is a reason that the opposition trembles when they look at you. There is a reason that the backing you carry registers in the atmosphere before you even open your mouth. And part of that reason is neurological. Part of that reason is measurable. Part of that reason has been sitting inside research laboratories and academic institutions for decades, waiting for the right moment to be brought to the people who need it most. Here is what the researchers found. Chosen ones carry a specific frequency, not as a metaphor, not as a spiritual abstraction, as a literal, measurable pattern of electrical activity in the brain. Scientists call it gamma, and gamma is not the frequency of ordinary function. It is not the frequency of getting through the day, or managing the task list, or navigating the predictable. Gamma operates at the highest end of the brain's documented range, above beta, above alpha, above theta, in a register that has been recorded predominantly in 2 populations. The first population is long-term meditators, monks and contemplatives who have spent decades training their attention. The second population is people who, without any formal training, seem to spontaneously access states of profound insight, creative breakthrough, and what can only be described as knowing that exceeds normal cognitive function. The chosen ones, the ones who feel things before they happen, the ones who walk into rooms and sense what others miss, the ones who carry an assignment that their circumstances have not yet caught up to. The question that researchers began asking was not whether gamma was real. The recordings confirmed that it was. The question was whether gamma could be accessed intentionally, whether the frequency that separated peak human function from ordinary function was something that could be learned, replicated, and sustained. And the answer that emerged from decades of careful research is yes. With the right auditory input, delivered in the right way, the brain can be guided into gamma. Not forced, guided. The way a river is guided by the shape of the land it flows through. And the tool that makes this guidance possible has a name. It is called brainwave entrainment. The scientist whose work brought this understanding to its clearest and most applicable form is a man named Dr. James Rivers. Dr. Rivers is a neuroscientist whose formal training was completed at MIT, one of the most rigorous research institutions in the world. His work has included research affiliations with NASA, which gave him access to studies examining the cognitive performance of individuals under extreme conditions, the kind of conditions that reveal what the human brain is capable of when ordinary limitations are stripped away. Over more than 30 years of dedicated research into the relationship between brain frequency and human potential, Dr. Rivers arrived at a discovery that he has described as the most significant finding of his career. He found that the brain states associated with peak creativity, accelerated learning, deep intuition, emotional clarity, and what he carefully terms elevating cognitive function are not the exclusive property of the naturally gifted. They are accessible, they are reproducible, and they can be reliably initiated through a specific auditory protocol that requires no prior training, no specialized knowledge, and no more than 7 minutes of daily practice. The mechanism works like this. When your ears receive two slightly different sound frequencies simultaneously, one in each ear, your brain does something remarkable. It does not simply process two separate sounds. It generates a third frequency, one that exists not in the audio, but in the electrical activity of the brain itself. This third frequency is the mathematical difference between the two tones. And when that difference is calibrated precisely, when the gap between the two frequencies corresponds to the theta or gamma range, the brain begins to synchronize with it. It entrains, it aligns, it shifts from whatever stressed or scattered or depleted state it was operating in and moves toward the frequency it is being offered. This is brainwave entrainment. This is the science behind what the 7 minutes in Step 3 of the Threshold Protocol was beginning to initiate in you. Dr. Rivers spent years refining the specific frequencies, the precise tonal relationships, the exact duration and sequencing that produces the most reliable and most profound shift. The result of that refinement is a 7-minute audio track called the Genius Wave. And I want to be careful about how I introduce this to you, because I am aware that you are a discerning person. You did not arrive at a message this deep by being credulous or easily swayed. So I want to give you something more than a description. I want to give you a story. There was a woman who found the genius wave during what she described as the most silent and most difficult season of her life. She had been carrying a creative vision for years, a project she believed she was meant to build that kept getting blocked at every practical level. Funding fell through. Collaborators withdrew. The timeline she had set for herself came and went twice. She was not a person who gave up easily, but she had reached the point where she was no longer sure whether her persistence was faith or stubbornness, and she did not have the clarity to tell the difference. A friend sent her the link to the Genius Wave without much explanation. She listened that evening not with high expectations, simply because she had nothing to lose and 7 minutes to spare. She described what happened afterward not as a dramatic revelation, but as a quiet unlocking. Like a drawer that had been stuck for so long she had stopped trying to open it. And then one morning she pulled it, and it opened without effort. Within 3 weeks of daily listening, the project that had been blocked for 2 years began to move. Not because circumstances changed dramatically, because her mind found a clarity and a creative fluency that allowed her to see solutions she had been standing directly in front of without being able to access. The funding came. The collaborator returned, and she told the story not as a miracle, though she used that word, but as the natural consequence of her brain finally operating at the frequency her calling required. There was also a man, a father of 3, who had spent 7 years in a career that paid the bills, but slowly drained something essential in him. He was not in crisis. He was in the particular quiet desperation of someone who is functioning adequately while feeling deeply misaligned. He found the genius wave through a different path and began the 7-minute daily practice with the kind of skeptical compliance that characterizes someone who has tried enough things to know that hope is expensive, but he stayed with it. And at around the 3-week mark, something shifted in the way his mind engaged with problems. He began to see his situation not as a trap but as a transition. He began to notice opportunities that had been present all along, but that his beta-dominant, stress-saturated brain had been filtering out as irrelevant. Within 2 months, he had made a change that he described as the most frightening and most correct decision of his adult life. He is not the same person who pressed play on that first 7 minutes. Now, I know that some of you are sitting with a very reasonable thought right now. You are thinking that $39 is not a small amount when you are in a season where resources feel tight. And I want to honor that thought rather than dismiss it. Because you are right. $39 is not nothing. And anyone who tells you otherwise has never sat at the end of a difficult month trying to make decisions about where every dollar goes. The feeling that you need to be careful, that you need to weigh this, is a valid feeling, and I am not here to override it. What I want to offer alongside that valid feeling is a question. What is the cost of another year of operating at the frequency your stress and your waiting seasons have imposed on your brain? What is the cost of continued creative blockage when you are carrying an assignment that requires creative access? What is the cost of 1 more month of lying awake at 3 in the morning with a mind that will not settle? The $39 is the cost of the tool. The alternative is a cost that does not show up in your bank account, but shows up in your days, in your energy, in the distance between where you are and where you are called to be. The Genius Wave is normally priced at $49. Through the link in the pinned comment below this video, it is available today for $39. That price reflects Dr. Rivers' commitment to making this technology accessible to the people who need it most, not exclusively to those who can afford premium wellness products. It comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, not 30 days, 90. 3 full months to practice it daily and decide whether what happens in your brain and in your life during that period justifies the investment. If it does not, you receive every dollar back without question. The guarantee is not a marketing device. It is confidence. It is Dr. Rivers saying that he knows what this does, and he is willing to stake the transaction on it. I need to say one more thing before we continue, and I need you to hear it clearly. There are imitation products that use similar language and similar claims circulating on various platforms. The Genius Wave has a single authorized point of access, and that is the link in the pinned comment beneath this video. Not a search engine result, not a third-party site, the pinned comment. Anything purchased through any other channel is not the calibrated, research-backed protocol that Dr. Rivers developed. It is a copy at best and a fraud at worst. Please protect yourself by using only the link that is pinned. And I want to say this about timing. The $39 price point is not permanent. It reflects a specific window of availability that Dr. Rivers has established for this particular period of outreach. The people who are meant to receive this in this season are the ones who will act within that window. If you have been feeling the pull since I first mentioned it, that pull is information. Chosen ones learn to honor the pull before the logic catches up, because the logic almost always catches up too late. What is coming next is something I want you to be present for, because we are about to go into the part of this message that is going to cost me the most to say and the most for you to hear. We are going to sit together with what the waiting has actually taken from you, not to mourn it permanently, but to honor it honestly, because a wound that is not named cannot be healed. And you have been carrying some things that deserve to finally be named. There is a thread that runs from everything I just described about the genius wave directly into what I need to say now, and I do not want to cut that thread by moving too quickly. The science of brainwave entrainment, the 7 minutes, the frequency of the chosen one, all of it points toward the same underlying truth. You were built for more than what these years have allowed you to express. And that gap, the gap between what you were built for and what these years have permitted, has a cost. A real cost. A cost that deserves to be spoken plainly and sat with honestly before we move toward anything that resembles resolution. I want to be direct with you now in a way that a lot of voices in this space are not willing to be. Because it is easier and it is more comfortable for everyone involved to move quickly from the pain to the promise, to acknowledge the difficulty in a sentence and then pivot to the breakthrough. To say, yes, it was hard, but look what is coming. And there is a place for that pivot. We will get there, but not yet, because I have sat with enough chosen ones in enough difficult seasons to know that what they need before the promise is the permission. Permission to admit, without immediately reframing it, what the waiting has actually taken. So let me say it for you. The years of waiting, however many they have been for you, whether it is 2 years or 5 years or a decade or longer, have taken things from you that cannot be fully returned. And that is not a spiritual failure. That is an honest accounting. The relationships that could have been built during those years, the friendships that needed tending, the romantic connections that needed time, and emotional availability that the waiting season consumed, those are real losses. You were not indifferent to the people around you. You were depleted. You were stretched across a distance between where you were and where you were trying to get to. And that stretching took a toll on your capacity to be fully present to the people who deserved your presence. Some of those people drifted because they could not understand what you were going through. Some of them left because the version of you that the waiting season produced was harder to love than the version they had signed up for. And you have carried a quiet guilt about that. A sense that you somehow failed the people you love by being in a season that took so much from you. That guilt is not yours to carry. Put it down for a moment and let me continue. Your career could have gone further. I want to say that plainly because it is true, and because the professional dimension of the waiting season is one of the least discussed and most painful aspects of what chosen ones endure. You have watched people move into positions, opportunities, and levels of visibility that your gifts were more than qualified to occupy. You have seen the recognition go to people whose work does not carry the depth of yours, and you have tried to be gracious about it, and most of the time you have succeeded. But in the private moments, in the moments when you are being fully honest with yourself, there is a grief there. A legitimate grief about what your career could have looked like if the path had been less obstructed, if the opposition had not been so organized, if the doors had opened when you first knocked on them, rather than making you wait through season after season of silence. That grief is not bitterness. It is an honest response to a real loss. You have also lost something that is harder to name, but perhaps most significant of all, and that is the freedom to speak your biggest dreams out loud without immediately managing other people's skepticism. There was a time when your vision for your life, the full unedited version of what you believed you were called toward, could sit in your chest without apology. And then the years passed, and the doors stayed closed, and the people around you responded to your dreams with a particular kind of gentle concern that is more deflating than outright opposition. And you began to edit. You began to offer smaller versions of the dream, safer versions, more defensible versions. You learned to preemptively shrink what you shared so that you would not have to watch it be diminished by someone else. And something in you contracted in that process. A freedom that belonged to you was quietly surrendered. And I want you to know that I see that loss. It is real. And then there is the loss that sits beneath all the others, the one that you may not have fully admitted even to yourself. The waiting season has taken a portion of your faith in yourself. Not your faith in God, not necessarily, though that too has been tested in ways that have been lonely and complicated, but your faith in your own perception. Your faith in the version of yourself that believed it was chosen, that believed the calling was real, that believed the doors would open and the assignment would be confirmed and the backing would become visible. That version of you has been tested by years of apparent silence. And while you have not abandoned the belief entirely, you have held it more carefully, more privately, more tentatively than you once did. And the tentativeness itself is a loss. The confidence of someone who has not yet been worn down by a long wait is something you will never fully recover. What you will have instead is something different and something deeper. The confidence of someone who held on through the years when holding on was the hardest thing they had ever done. But I am not going to reframe that too quickly. I am going to sit with the loss first. There is a man in the ancient record whose story I want to bring into this space, not to jump to the triumphant ending, but to stay in the difficult middle. Joseph. You may know the outline. Dreamer, favorite son, thrown into a pit by the very brothers who should have been his greatest advocates. Sold, enslaved, imprisoned for a crime he did not commit, and then forgotten, specifically forgotten, by someone whose release from that same prison he had personally facilitated. The cupbearer who promised to remember Joseph and then returned to his comfortable life and did not think of him again for 2 full years. 2 years of additional waiting after a decade of suffering. 2 years of Joseph sitting in a prison cell, holding a dream that had been given to him in his youth, wondering not whether God was real, but whether the dream had been real, whether he had misunderstood, whether the vision of sheaves bowing and stars aligning had been his own ambition dressed up in spiritual language rather than a genuine word from a genuine source. I want you to stay in that prison cell with Joseph for a moment. Not in the throne room, not in the moment of revelation when Pharaoh calls for him and the interpretation comes and the elevation happens in a single afternoon. Stay in the cell. Stay in the years. Before that afternoon, stay in the experience of a man who was genuinely chosen, genuinely called, genuinely backed by a divine hand, and who had absolutely no visible evidence of any of it during the longest and most formative stretch of his life. Because that is where you have been. And the reason the Joe story matters here is not the ending. It is the texture of the middle. It is the confirmation that being chosen does not protect you from the pit. It does not exempt you from the false accusation. It does not spare you from the specific pain of being forgotten, by someone who promised to remember. Being chosen means that the opposition is real, and the waiting is real, and the cost is real, and the backing is also real. And all of these things are simultaneously true in the same season of the same life. What was taken from Joseph in those years cannot be romanticized away. His youth was spent in slavery and imprisonment. The relationships of his young adulthood were those of a prisoner, not a free man. The career trajectory that his gifts deserved was delayed by more than a decade. The confidence of a beloved son was replaced by the practiced endurance of someone who learned to survive invisibility. These are real losses. The elevation does not erase them, it redeems them. And there is a difference between erasure and redemption that I think you already understand. Redemption says that what was lost was real, and it mattered, and it cost something genuine. And then, redemption says that the cost was not wasted, that the years in the prison produced a Joseph who was capable of governing a nation during a famine, not despite the suffering, but because of the specific formation that the suffering accomplished. The pit made him able to see the cupbearer's dream. The prison made him able to interpret Pharaoh's. The loss produced the capacity, and the capacity was the point. But here is what I need you to hold alongside that truth. The formation does not make the cost disappear. You are allowed to grieve what was taken, while also trusting what the taking was for. You do not have to choose between acknowledging the loss and believing in the purpose. You can hold both. In fact, holding both is the more honest and the more courageous spiritual posture. The chosen ones who try to rush past the grief into the gratitude often find that the grief comes back later in heavier form because it was never fully honored. I am giving you permission to honor it. Now, to say out loud if you need to, that the years cost something, that the waiting took something real, that the losses were not imaginary, and they were not trivial, and they were not the price of some spiritual lesson that you needed to learn because you were not good enough before. They were the cost of a formation that was preparing something extraordinary, and you paid that cost in full, without fully understanding what you were paying for. And that matters. It matters to heaven, and it is about to matter in ways that become visible in the world around you. Because what is coming is not just a reward for surviving. It is a release of everything that was held in reserve during the years when the time was not yet right. The appointed moment does not arrive with an apology. It arrives with everything that was waiting alongside it. And we are going to talk about what that looks like and what ancient language has always known about the kind of time that is now arriving for you. There is a language older than any language you have studied in school, older than the frameworks your culture gave you for understanding time and progress and arrival. And inside that ancient language, there are concepts so precise, so specific in what they describe, that when you encounter them for the first time, you do not feel like you are learning something new. You feel like you are finally being given the word for something you have always known but could never articulate. That is what this section is: a vocabulary, a set of lenses through which the years you have been living begin to look not like a sequence of obstacles and delays, but like a carefully structured preparation for a moment that was always coming and has now arrived. The first concept I want to give you is one that comes from the ancient Greek language of the New Testament. The word is kairos. And to understand kairos, you first have to understand its counterpart, which is chronos. Chronos is the kind of time you have been measuring your life against. It is clock time, calendar time, the time that moves in a straight line from Monday to Tuesday, from January to December, from the year you set a goal to the year by which you expected to have achieved it. Chronos is quantitative. It counts. It measures. It compares where you are now to where you were then, and produces a calculation of progress, or the lack of it. And for the chosen ones who have been in a long waiting season, Chronos has been a source of considerable pain. Because Chronos says you are behind. Chronos says the window is closing. Chronos says that the peers who moved faster and the timelines that were not honored are evidence of a deficit that needs to be explained. But Kairos is something entirely different. Kairos is not a quantity of time. It is a quality of time. It is the word the ancient writers used for a moment that is ripe, a moment that carries within itself a specific readiness that did not exist the moment before and will not exist the moment after. Kairos is the moment when the fig is ready to be picked, not when the calendar says it should be, but when the fruit itself has reached the fullness of what it was growing toward. Kairos is the appointed moment, the right moment, the moment that is not early and not late, but exactly timed according to a precision that operates entirely outside the chronological measurements your culture has taught you to trust. And here is what I need you to understand about Kairos in relation to your life right now. The positioning you have been in, the season of obscurity and preparation and waiting that has felt like being overlooked or delayed or left behind. That was not a failure of Chronos. That was a movement through Kairos. The formation was not slow. The formation was exact. And what is happening now, the trembling of those of who oppose you, the shift in the atmosphere around you, the sense that something is about to break open, that has been sealed for years. This is Kairos arriving, not as a reward for your endurance, not as compensation for your suffering, but as the fulfillment of a moment that was appointed before you were aware there was anything to wait for. This is not positioning. This is not the edge of the breakthrough. This is the Kairos moment itself, and you are standing inside it right now. The second concept I want to give you comes from the Hebrew language, and the word is kava. In most English translations of the ancient texts, kava is rendered as wait, as in those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. And for generations that translation has shaped how chosen ones understand the posture of the waiting season, as passive endurance, as gritted teeth persistence, as simply not leaving while nothing appears to be happening. But kava does not mean passive waiting. The root of the word carries the image of braiding a rope, of taking individual strands that are weak on their own and twisting them together with a tension and a direction that produces something with a tensile strength far greater than any single strand could possess. When you kava, you are not sitting still. You are being woven. The strand of your faith is being braided with the strand of your character, which is being braided with the strand of your experience, which is being braided with the strand of the gifts that were placed in you before you were born, which is being braided with the strand of the specific assignment that your life was designed to fulfill. And the braiding takes time, not because God is slow, but because the strength of the finished rope depends on the integrity of every strand that goes into it. A rope braided too quickly has weak points. A rope braided with patience and precision and the right tension is capable of holding weight that would snap a lesser cord in an instant. This is what the years of your waiting season have been doing. You have not been sitting in a waiting room. You have been on a braiding table. Every loss, every delay, every door that did not open, every relationship that ended, every season of invisibility, every night of insomnia and honest prayer in the dark, every moment of choosing to hold on when the logical response would have been to let go. All of these have been strands, and they have been woven together with a precision you could not have supervised even if you had tried. The rope that is being finished now is capable of carrying the weight of everything that is coming. You are not delayed. You are being assembled. And now I want to bring you to the concept that sits at the very heart of this video. The concept that I believe is the reason this message found you at this particular moment. It is the concept of the appointed time. In the ancient Hebrew tradition, there is an understanding that certain events are not subject to the ordinary laws of cause and effect. They are not produced by sufficient human effort or derailed. By insufficient human effort, they are ordained, set, fixed in a dimension that human opposition cannot reach and human doubt cannot alter. The ancient writer of the book of Habakkuk was told, in a moment of deep national despair, to write the vision down and make it plain, for the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens toward the goal and it will not fail. Though it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. That word delay in the original language is fascinatingly precise. It does not mean the vision will arrive quickly. It means the vision will not arrive a single moment after the appointed time. There is a difference between what feels like delay and what is actually the appointed time not yet having arrived. And when the appointed time arrives, it does not trickle in. It comes with the force and the certainty of something that was never in question, because it was never in question. The only thing that was ever uncertain was your ability to see it clearly from inside the waiting season. Here is what the appointed time looks like when it arrives for a chosen one. The opposition trembles, not metaphorically. The forces, the people, the systems, the internal voices that spent years telling you that you were wrong, that the calling was imagined, that the door was not going to open. They register the shift before you do, because they have been reacting to what is behind you all along. And what is behind you has not changed. But something about the appointed moment makes it visible in a way that the preparation season concealed. The covering is lifted, the backing becomes apparent. And the ones who were most invested in your remaining small suddenly find themselves unable to maintain the confidence they had in your limitation. They see something, and what they see makes them tremble. That trembling is your confirmation. It is not something you orchestrated. You cannot produce it by trying harder or believing more forcefully or performing a more convincing version of certainty. It is produced by the arrival of the appointed time, and the appointed time is not subject to human scheduling. What God has ordained, delay cannot cancel. What is written into the kairos of your life, chronos cannot prevent. What has been braided through years of kava, no force of opposition can unravel in the moment of the appointed release. I want you to feel the weight of what I am saying without immediately moving to make it more comfortable. You are not approaching the appointed time. You are not on the edge of it. You are inside it. The trembling you have sensed in the atmosphere around you, the sudden changes in how certain people relate to you, the unexpected openings, the sense that something large is moving in your direction. These are not signs that something is coming. They are signs that something has arrived. The hour of revelation is not a future moment you are preparing for. It is the moment you are currently standing in. And the only thing left is for you to receive it with the same tenacity and the same dignity that carried you through every year of the formation season. You were not assembled for nothing. You were not braided with that precision to carry a weight that would not materialize. The rope is finished. The appointed time is here. And what is standing behind you has always been enough. You can feel it, even if you cannot yet name it precisely. There is something stirring in the interior of your life that has a different quality than the stirrings of previous seasons. Previous seasons brought urgency or anxiety, or the restless energy of someone who is pushing against a door that will not move. What you are feeling now is different. It is not urgency. It is not anxiety. It is something closer to a deep internal, knowing that the landscape around you is about to rearrange itself in ways that your current vantage point cannot fully show you. And that knowing is not wishful thinking. It is not the desperate optimism of someone who has been waiting so long that they have started to manufacture hope from nothing. It is the specific, grounded, almost quiet certainty that arrives when the appointed time has come and the body registers it before the mind has fully processed the information. I want to be specific with you now about what is coming, not in vague spiritual language that sounds beautiful but lands nowhere. Specifically, concretely, in the 3 areas of your life where the shift is going to be most visible, most felt, and most significant. Because chosen ones in the season of release deserve more than poetry. They deserve a map, and while I cannot give you every detail of the territory ahead, I can tell you the shape of what is moving toward you so that when it arrives, you recognize it rather than second-guessing it. Or worse, stepping back from it because it does not look exactly the way you imagined it would. The first area where something is about to move is the area of provision and opportunity. And I want to address this first because it is often the area where chosen ones carry the most accumulated shame. There is a particular kind of pain that comes from being gifted and called and simultaneously struggling in the practical dimensions of life. The finances that have not reflected the potential everyone around you could see. The opportunities that seem to materialize and then dissolve before they could be fully grasped. The sense of working harder than the returns would suggest and wondering in private whether the math of your life will ever balance out. That imbalance has been real, and I am not going to pretend it has not cost you something significant in terms of both resources and self-perception. But here is what is specifically about to change in this area. The provision that is coming is not going to look like the provision you have been striving toward. It is not going to be the result of you finally finding the right strategy or the right connection or the right moment to push harder. It is going to arrive through channels that you did not construct and could not have predicted. It is going to appear in the form of an opportunity that seems to come from nowhere, and that carries a rightness, a fit, a sense of this is mine that is immediately recognizable, even if the circumstances around it are unfamiliar. It is going to feel less like achieving and more like receiving. And I need you to know that in advance, because chosen ones who have spent years in the striving mode can sometimes struggle to receive with open hands. The instinct is to look for the catch, to wait for the other shoe, to manage the expectation before it can be disappointed again. Let me speak directly to that instinct now. The provision that is moving toward you in this season is not a setup for another disappointment. It is the release of what was held in reserve during the formation season. And your assignment in this moment is not to earn it or to manage it. Your assignment is to be available for it and to receive it without apology. The second area where something is about to move is the area of purpose and direction. I know that one of the most exhausting questions of the waiting season has been the question of what you are supposed to be doing. Not in a trivial career sense, but in the deeper sense of what your specific assignment in this specific life actually is. You have had glimpses, you have had seasons of clarity that then became clouded again. You have followed threads that seemed to lead somewhere and then went quiet, and the combination of glimpsing and losing and glimpsing again has produced a particular kind of spiritual fatigue that is different from ordinary tiredness. It is the fatigue of someone who has been trying to read a map in poor light for a very long time. What is about to happen in this area is not a dramatic download of complete clarity, though moments of that are coming. What is about to happen first is simpler and more sustainable than that. The question of what you should do is about to answer itself in one clear, small, concrete step. Not the whole staircase, one step. And that one step is going to feel obvious in a way that your previous attempts at direction have not felt obvious. It is going to feel like remembering rather than discovering, like something that was always there becoming suddenly legible. And when that step appears, I want to give you specific advice about what to do with it. Take it. Do not wait for the confirmation of the second step before you take the first. Do not wait until the whole picture is clear before you move toward the part that is already visible. The chosen ones who step into their purpose do so one legible step at a time, and the next step only becomes visible from the position of having taken the one before it. The clarity you have been waiting for is not going to arrive all at once and then give you the option of moving. It is going to arrive incrementally, in direct proportion to your willingness to move toward the part that is already clear. The third area where something is about to move is the area of relationships and community. And this is perhaps the most tender of the three because it involves other people, and other people are the dimension of life over which you have the least control and the most vulnerability. Here is what I want you to understand about the relational shift that is coming. The people who are about to enter your life are not going to be substitutes for the ones who left. They are not going to fill the same roles or occupy the same emotional spaces. They are going to be something different. They are going to be companions for the season ahead, rather than relationships built around the season behind. They are going to see the version of you that the waiting season produced, the deeper, more grounded, more discerning version, and they are going to recognize it immediately. And the recognition is going to feel different from the way most of your significant relationships have begun. It is going to feel less like chemistry and more like resonance, less like excitement and more like a settled rightness. Pay attention to that feeling. It is a reliable signal in this season. And some of the people who have been in your life, some of the long-standing relationships that have felt increasingly misaligned, are going to complete their movement away from you in this season without drama and without the need for difficult conversations. This is not abandonment. This is the natural reorganization that happens when a person's life shifts into a new frequency. Not everyone who was built for your formation season was built for your release season. And releasing them, even with love, even with genuine gratitude for what they contributed to who you have become, is part of what makes room for what is coming. Now I need to do what not to do during this period, because the between season moment, the place between what was and what is coming, is a place where chosen ones can inadvertently slow or complicate the very movement they have been waiting for. Do not make permanent decisions from temporary feelings during this transition. The emotional landscape of a season shift is not stable. There will be days that feel like the full breakthrough has arrived, and days that feel like nothing has changed, and you were wrong about everything. Both of those feelings are part of the transition. Neither of them is an accurate report on your actual position. Do not sign the resignation letter on the highest day. Do not close the door on the relationship on the lowest day. Stay in the practice. Stay in the 7 minutes. Stay in contact with the frequency that is your actual baseline, not the emotional weather of a given afternoon. Do not announce the shift to people who were not present for the formation. There is a very human impulse when something finally begins to move after years of stillness to tell everyone, to update the people who watched you struggle, to finally be able to offer evidence to the ones who express doubt. Resist that impulse in this early stage. Not permanently, but for now. The movement that is beginning in your life is tender, in the way that new growth is always tender. It needs the protection of some privacy while it establishes its roots. The time for visible testimony is coming. It is not yet. Do not mistake the trembling of your opposition for an invitation to engage with them. The fact that they are trembling does not mean they are ready to be reconciled to you, or that a confrontation would be productive or healing. Their trembling is information for you, not an opening toward them. Keep your attention on what is ahead rather than on the reaction of those who are behind you. The one who is standing behind you is not interested in you turning around to manage the response of the ones who are afraid. The one who is standing behind you is moving you forward. Stay facing forward. I want you to type the word forward in the comments right now if something in this section landed in a specific place for you. If the provisions section named a grief you have been carrying quietly. If the purpose section described the fatigue of reading an unclear map. If the relationship section gave you language for a shift that has already begun, but that you have not yet had words for. Type forward, not as a performance, as a declaration, as the chosen one's way of saying out loud that they know which direction they are pointed and they are not turning back. Something inside you is coming alive that has been waiting for exactly this moment. The trembling around you is real. The shift is real. The one standing behind you is real. And what is ahead of you is more than you have allowed yourself to fully imagine, because the full imagination of it would have made the waiting unbearable. You were protected from seeing it completely until you were ready to receive it completely. You are ready now, and we are almost at the moment where I get to tell you exactly who you are in this new season and what your name is going to be going forward. The forward you just declared is not a direction, it is an identity. And that is where I want to take you now, into the specific naming of who you have become through everything this season has required of you. Because one of the quietest losses of a long waiting season is the loss of a clear sense of self, not in a dramatic crisis of identity way, in a more subtle and more insidious way. The way that years of being unseen, years of carrying more than you were meant to carry alone, years of editing the fullness of who you are to fit into spaces that were not built for you. The way that all of that gradually erodes the clarity of your own self-perception. You know you are chosen. You have held onto that knowing through seasons that tested it thoroughly. But the specific articulation of who you are now, after the formation, after the braiding, after the appointed time has begun to arrive, that may be less clear, and I want to give it to you now, not as a label, as a recognition. The name I want to give you in this season is this. You are a waymaker. And I want to be precise about what that means, because I do not want to offer you a word that sounds powerful without giving you the full weight of what it carries. A waymaker is not someone who finds a way through. That would make you a survivor, and while survival is honorable, it is not the fullness of what you are. A waymaker is someone whose passage through a territory changes the territory itself. Where there was no path, the waymaker's journey creates one. Not because they set out to build infrastructure for others, but because the specific combination of their gifts, their suffering, their formation, and their divine backing makes their movement through the world generative in a way that ordinary movement is not. You do not just get through you open things. You do not just survive seasons. You create access for the people who come after you into territories that were closed before you walked through them. Think about what this means in the context of your specific life. The family system you came from, the patterns that were in place before you arrived, the ways of relating and believing and coping and surviving that were handed down through generations. You are the one who is changing them. Not by announcing that you are changing them, by being someone whose inner life operates at a different frequency than the patterns that preceded you. The generational momentum that was moving in one direction is being redirected through you. The people who come after you, your children if you have them, the young people who watch you, the ones who will one day tell the story of someone who held on when holding on was the most unreasonable and most necessary thing anyone could do. They are going to walk into a different landscape because you walked through yours without letting it define the ceiling of what was possible. That is a waymaker. That is you. And I want you to hold that name not as an aspiration but as a current reality. You are not becoming a waymaker. You are already one. The making has been happening throughout the entire waiting season. Every day, you chose to stay. Every morning you got up and returned to the practice when the practice felt futile. Every moment you protected the knowing inside you against the erosion of discouragement. You were making the way, the visibility of the way. Moment when others can see what you have been building, that is what is arriving now. But the making itself has been your reality for longer than you know. I wanted to guide you through something now, a visualization. Not as an exercise in imagination for its own sake, but as a way of helping your whole self, not just your analytical mind, but your body, your nervous system, your emotional center, to land fully in the reality of where you actually are. Close your eyes if it is safe to do so. And if you cannot close your eyes, soften your gaze and let what I am about to describe become real in the interior of your attention. Picture yourself standing at a threshold. It is a doorway, not ornate, not dramatic in its appearance, but significant in a way that you can feel rather than see. The doorway is real and solid, and you are standing directly in front of it. Your feet are on the ground. You are not floating. You are not performing. You are simply standing as yourself, in the body you actually have, carrying everything you have actually carried, in front of this threshold that has your name on it. Now I want you to turn slowly and look back at the path behind you. Do not rush this. Let yourself actually see it. The distance you have traveled is longer than you usually allow yourself to acknowledge. There are places on that path that were very dark. There are stretches where the path narrowed to almost nothing, and you were not sure you were still on a path at all. There are places where you can see, from this vantage point, that you were being guided even when you felt most alone. The marks of provision in the places where you ran out. The redirections that felt like failures at the time, but that brought you specifically and precisely to where you are standing now. There are also people on that path behind you. Some of them walked with you for a long time, and then their path diverged from yours. Some of them hurt you in ways that left marks you still carry. Some of them loved you imperfectly, but genuinely, and their love is woven into the rope that was braided through your kava. Look at them without judgment, without the need to assign final verdicts to anyone. You can see them all from here with a clarity and a compassion that was not available to you while you were in the middle of the journey. That clarity is one of the gifts of the threshold. From here, you can see the path for what it actually was. Formation. The long, precise, often painful formation of a waymaker. Now turn back toward the doorway. Face forward again, and this time, let yourself look up rather than straight ahead, not into the ceiling or the sky, into the sense of what is above and beyond the threshold. You cannot see the full landscape of what is on the other side, that is appropriate. The Waymaker does not get a complete preview because the completeness of the preview would remove the element of faith that keeps the frequency of trust alive in the system. But you can sense the quality of what is there. And the quality is this: spaciousness, room. Room for the full version of you, not the edited version, not the smaller version, not the version that learned to apologize for taking up too much space or having too much to say or dreaming too large. The full version, the Waymaker version, the one who carries gamma frequency in the brain and divine backing in the spirit and the accumulated wisdom of every single day of the formation season in the bones. Notice now that you are not standing at the edge of the threshold. You are already standing inside it. The threshold is not something you are about to enter. You have already crossed it. The moment you stayed when everything in you wanted to leave. The moment you chose the practice when the practice felt pointless. The moment you typed forward because something in you recognized that forward was the only direction that was true. Those moments where you're crossing and you are already standing in the doorway. 1 foot in the formation and 1 foot in the release, which means the only movement left is to bring both feet through. Take a breath. Let that breath be the breath of someone who has already arrived rather than the breath of someone still trying to get there. Because that is the truth of where you are. You are not almost there. You have not nearly made it. You are at the threshold, which means you are already in the beginning of everything that the waiting was for. Now I want to speak a blessing over you before we move into the final sections of this message. And I want this blessing to be specific rather than generic, because you are a specific person with a specific assignment and a specific history, and you deserve a blessing that knows your name even when I do not. May the clarity that has been building in you find its voice in this season without apology and without the old habit of making yourself smaller to make others more comfortable. May the provision that is moving toward you arrive in forms you are able to receive with open hands. And may the instinct to brace for disappointment be replaced by the practiced grace of genuine receptivity. May the relationships that are coming find you recognizable, the full you, the Waymaker you, the one who has been assembled through years of faithful kava and is now ready to walk in the fullness of the appointed time. May the one who is standing behind you become more visible to you in this season than ever before, not just to the opposition, to you. May you feel the weight and the warmth of that backing in the moments when the old fears try to resurface. May the gamma frequency that is your birthright as a chosen one become your consistent operating state, rather than a rare peak experience. And may the path you make through this new territory be one that the people who come after you can walk with greater ease than you walked yours. You are a Waymaker. You are chosen. You are backed by something that makes opposition tremble. And you are already standing in the threshold of everything you were formed for. Walk through it. The way is made, and the one who made it with you is not finished. The blessing I just spoke over you was not a conclusion. It was a commissioning. And a commissioning always comes with practical instruction, because the one who sends you does not send you unprepared. They send you with specific knowledge of the territory ahead and specific guidance for how to move through it. So this is the part where we get practical. This is the part where the spiritual reality we have been building together finds its feet in the actual landscape of your Monday morning, your Tuesday afternoon, your Wednesday evening, when the old feelings try to resurface and you need something more than inspiration to hold your ground. This is the part where I tell you not just what is coming, but what to do right now. Today, in the body and the life you are actually living, to meet what is moving toward you with a posture and the readiness it deserves. Before I go into the 3 areas of transformation, I want to give you one overarching practical instruction that governs everything else I am about to say. And that instruction is this: stop managing the gap and start inhabiting the ground. Let me explain what I mean by that. For most of the waiting season, your primary mental and emotional activity has been the management of the distance between where you are and where you are called to be. You have been holding that gap in your awareness, measuring it, negotiating with it, trying to shrink it through effort, or at least make peace with it through acceptance. And that management activity, while understandable, has been consuming an enormous amount of your cognitive and emotional energy. Energy that is now needed for something different. The gap is closing. The appointed time is here, and the posture that serves a person in the closing of the gap is fundamentally different from the posture that serves a person in the management of it. You are no longer managing distance. You are inhabiting ground, and inhabiting requires presence rather than calculation, receptivity rather than striving, and the willingness to be fully in the moment that is actually happening rather than perpetually oriented toward the moment you are still waiting for. Now let us go into the 3 areas. And I want you to receive these not as abstract categories, but as specific descriptions of your actual life in the weeks and months immediately ahead. The first area is relationships, and the practical action I want to give you here is deceptively simple. It is this: let the leaving happen without chasing, and let the arriving happen without testing. In the relational reorganization of a season shift, 2 movements happen simultaneously. People who were part of your formation season complete their departure, and people who are built for your release season begin to appear. Both of these movements require a specific kind of trust from you that the waiting season may have made difficult. The departure of familiar people, even when the relationship had become misaligned, triggers the old wound of abandonment. The arrival of new people, even when the resonance is immediately apparent, triggers the old reflex of self-protection. And both of these reflexes, chasing the ones who are leaving and testing the ones who are arriving, disrupt the natural intelligence of the relational reorganization that heaven is orchestrating on your behalf. So here is the practical instruction. When you notice someone pulling back or completing a departure, resist the impulse to pursue or to perform a version of yourself designed to make them stay. Instead, release them with a specific internal prayer. Something as simple as, "I bless you on the path that is yours, and I trust that the path that is mine is being cleared." Say it and mean it, and then turn your attention forward. And when you notice someone new entering your atmosphere, someone whose presence carries that quality of resistance I described earlier, that settled rightness rather than surface excitement, resist the impulse to immediately subject them to the tests that previous relationships taught you to apply. Instead, be simply and genuinely present with them. Let them see the real version of you earlier than feels safe. Because the people who are built for your release season are not going to be frightened by your depth. They are going to be relieved by it. They have been looking for someone who operates at this frequency, just as you have been looking for them. The practical action for relationships this week is to identify one person in your current life whose presence consistently brings you a sense of clarity and expansion rather than depletion and contraction, and to reach out to them with genuine intention rather than social obligation. Not a group message, a specific, personal, intentional reach. Because the relationships of the release season are built on intentionality, and you begin building them by practicing intentionality now. The second area is purpose. And here I want to give you the most specific, practical instruction of this entire message. Because purpose is the area where chosen ones most consistently get stuck in the gap between knowing they are called and knowing specifically what to do about it today. The instruction is this: do the one thing that has been sitting at the edge of your awareness for the longest time without being acted on. You know what it is. I do not need to describe it in detail because it is already present in your mind as I say these words. It is the thing you have been circling, the creative project you have been preparing to begin for months, the conversation you have been meaning to initiate, the application you have been almost submitting, the practice you have been intending to start, the small business idea that has been living in a notebook or a phone note for longer than you want to admit. The reason it has not been acted on is not laziness, and it is not fear in the ordinary sense. It is the particular paralysis of someone who understands that what they are stepping toward is significant, and who has been waiting, unconsciously, for conditions that feel adequate to the significance of the step. But here is what I need you to hear. The conditions will never feel fully adequate before the step. The adequacy arrives with the step. The confirmation comes through the movement, not before it. And the one clear small action that purpose is asking of you right now does not require perfect conditions. It requires 7 minutes of the threshold protocol to align your brain frequency, followed by one concrete action taken from that aligned state. Not a plan for all the actions, not a strategy for the whole project. One action, today, before the momentum of the ordinary day swallows the clarity of this moment. Write the first paragraph, send the first message, make the first call, book the first appointment, register the first domain, open the first blank document and put your name at the top of it. The specifics depend on what your one thing is, but the principle is universal. Move toward the clearest part of the vision with one concrete action today, and trust that the next step will become visible from the position of having taken this one. That is how purpose unfolds for the waymaker, not in a single dramatic revelation, but in a sequence of faithful single steps, each one making the next legible in a way that could not have been seen from further back on the path. The third area is resources and opportunities. And here the practical instruction is perhaps the most counterintuitive of the three. The instruction is to stop fighting and start discerning. Let me explain the difference because it is important. For most of the waiting season, your relationship with resources and opportunities has been characterized by effort, by the sense that you need to push, pursue, network, position, compete, and in general apply significant force in order to secure what you need. And that effort has been exhausting because it has been disproportionate to the results it produced. You have worked harder than the returns would justify, and that imbalance has been one of the most demoralizing features of the formation season. But what is coming in the release season does not operate according to the same mechanics. The opportunities that are moving toward you in this season are not going to be won through superior competition. They are going to be recognized through superior discernment. Because not everything that looks like an opportunity in this season is an opportunity for you. Some of what is going to appear will be a distraction dressed as a door. Some of it will be an invitation into someone else's season, rather than your own. And the chosen one who is operating in the release season needs to be able to tell the difference between a door that is meant for them and a door that is simply open. The way to tell the difference is this: an opportunity that is appointed for you will carry a specific quality of peace in its arrival. Not excitement, though excitement may be present. Not logic, though the logic may be sound. peace. A settled interior. This is mind quality that operates underneath the surface emotions and the analytical assessment. The genius wave practice that we discussed earlier, the 7-minute daily protocol of brainwave entrainment that moves your brain into theta and gamma frequencies, is specifically valuable here because those frequencies are the ones in which this kind of discernment operates most clearly. When your brain is running in the stressed beta frequencies of a person managing a gap, the signal of genuine discernment is buried under noise. When your brain is attuned to the theta-gamma range, the signal is clear. You know without needing to convince yourself, and that knowing is trustworthy. So the practical action for resources and opportunities is to commit to the daily 7-minute practice without exception for the next 30 days, and to bring every significant opportunity that arises during that period to the practice before making a decision about it, not as a superstition, as a methodology, as the chosen one's equivalent of running a calculation through the instrument that is most calibrated for accurate results. Your aligned brain is that instrument. Use it before the decisions that matter. Here is what I want you to do right now, before this video ends, before the ordinary momentum of your day reasserts itself and the clarity of this moment fades into the background noise of everything else that needs your attention. I want you to take out whatever you use to write things down, a phone, a notebook, the back of an envelope, anything, and write 3 things. The name of one person you are going to reach out to with genuine intention today. The name of the one thing that has been sitting at the edge of your awareness that you are going to take one concrete action toward before the day ends, written in your own handwriting or typed in your own words to complete. The 7-minute threshold protocol every day for the next 30 days. 3 things written down right now, because the chosen ones who move from inspiration to action in the moment of clarity are the ones who look back a year from now and understand why this particular message found them at this particular moment. The ones who receive the clarity and then wait for a better moment to act on it discover that the better moment requires another message, and another, because clarity that is not acted upon dissipates. It does not wait for your schedule to clear. It moves to the person who will meet it where it is. You have been meeting things where they are throughout this entire formation season. You showed up to the practice when the practice was hard. You held the knowing when the knowing was inconvenient. You stayed when leaving would have been easier and more comfortable and completely understandable given everything you were carrying. You are not someone who waits for a better moment. You are someone who makes the moment better by showing up to it fully. So show up to this one. Write the 3 things and then do them. Because the waymaker does not wait for the way to be completely clear before taking the first step. The waymaker takes the first step and makes the way clear by walking it. What remains now is the final part of this message, and it is the part that I have been building toward from the very first word. It is the part where I get to speak directly to the version of you that showed up here today. The one who has been carrying more than anyone around them fully sees, and tell you what that showing up means and what it says about who you are and where you are going. I want to start here by saying something that I mean with every part of what I am. Thank you. Not the performative kind of thank you that opens and closes content because it is the polite thing to do. A genuine, specific, weighted thank you directed at the part of you that showed up today when it would have been entirely reasonable not to. The part of you that pressed play on this message instead of scrolling past it. The part of you that stayed through the uncomfortable truth at the beginning through the naming of the grief in the middle, through the practical instructions that asked something real of you at the end. That part of you, the part that keeps showing up even when showing up has not yet produced the visible results, that part of you is the most obviously worth it, part of the remarkable thing about you. And I do not want to move past it without honoring it directly. Because here is what I know about the person who stayed through a message this long. You are not someone who is looking for a shortcut. You are not someone who arrived here because you wanted to be told that everything is fine and no effort is required, and the breakthrough is coming whether you engage with it or not. You arrived here because something in you recognized that there was something real being offered, and you were willing to give it the time and the attention it required. That willingness, that specific quality of engaged, discerning, genuine seeking, is itself a form of the divine backing that this entire message has been pointing toward. The one who is standing behind you is not standing behind a passive blinder. The one who is standing behind you is standing behind someone who keeps showing up. And that showing up is both the evidence of the calling and the practice of it. I want you to know that you are not alone in this room. I know that the waiting season can create a very convincing illusion of isolation, the sense that your specific combination of gifts and struggles and faith and grief is so particular, so singular, that no one else could possibly understand the precise texture of what you have been carrying. And while it is true that your specific path is yours alone, the shape of the season you have been in is recognized by chosen ones all across the world. Right now, as you receive this message, there are chosen ones in cities you have never visited, in languages you do not speak, in circumstances that look nothing like yours on the surface, but that carry the same interior weather, the same insomnia, the same wave of inexplicable grief, the same recurring dream about the unopened door, the same frustration that does not have a clean name, the same quiet, persistent knowing that refuses to be extinguished, no matter how long the silence lasts. They are walking into this exact same message in this exact season. And when you type something in the comments, when you share this video with someone who needs it, when you do any of the small acts that extend the reach of this message beyond the space you are sitting in right now, you are reaching across the invisible thread that connects all of you. You are not alone. You have never been alone, and the season of feeling alone is ending. I want to do one more thing with you before we close. I want to give you a practice of release. Because one of the things that happens when a season genuinely shifts is that the body does not always receive the memo as quickly as the spirit does. The spirit knows the appointed time has arrived, but the body, the nervous system, the emotional memory that lives in the muscles and the chest and the back of the throat, that system has been operating in survival mode for long enough that it needs a specific, intentional act of release before it can fully settle into the new season. So here is what I want you to do right now. I want you to imagine everything you have been carrying in this waiting season as a physical weight, not a metaphor, an actual, tangible, heavy thing. Give it whatever form feels true to you. A stone, a backpack, a bundle, a box. Feel the actual weight of it in your body as you sit here. Feel where it has been living, in your shoulders, in your chest, in the back of your neck, in the place behind your sternum where the grief has been collecting. Feel the full weight of it without immediately trying to lighten it or reframe it or make peace with it. Just feel it. And now I want you to imagine setting it down, deliberately, intentionally, not throwing it away in anger, not dropping it from exhaustion. Setting it down with the conscious awareness that you are at the threshold, and the threshold is the appointed place of release. The weight served its purpose. It was the resistance that built the strength the Waymaker needed. It was the pressure that formed the rope through the years of kava. It was the darkness that made the gamma frequency necessary, and the silence that made the appointed time precious. It was not nothing. It was formation, and now it is complete. And you can set it down here at the threshold and walk through with empty hands, which are the only hands that are free to receive what is on the other side. Set it down. Feel the difference in your body as you do, even if it is subtle, even if the relief is quieter than you expected. Feel it. That is real. That is your nervous system beginning to receive the information that your spirit already knows. The season has shifted. The weight belongs to what was. What is coming requires your hands free. Now I want to ask something of you in return for everything this message has offered, and I want to ask it in the most natural and honest way I know how. Because you are someone who responds to honesty more than to performance. If this message named something that needed to be named, if it gave language to something you have been carrying in silence, if it landed in a specific place and produced a specific shift in how you understand where you are and where you are going, then I want to ask you to do 3 things. The first is to like this video, not as a transaction, as an act of agreement, as your way of saying, yes, this was real, this was worth the time, this deserves to be seen by more chosen ones who are in the same season. The algorithm that determines who sees this message responds to that simple act, and every chosen one who sees this message because you pressed like is someone whose formation season might end a week earlier, a month earlier, because the naming arrived sooner. The second is to share it. Not broadly, not performatively, but specifically. Think of one person right now, just one, who is in a silent season, who has been carrying something without language for it, who showed up to last Monday without anyone to name what they were feeling. Send this to them directly, not with a long explanation. Just send it and let the message do what it was built to do. That one share is an act of the Waymaker. That is you making a way for someone else by walking through your own. The third is to subscribe and to consider supporting this channel through a donation if you feel genuinely led, not out of obligation. Not because content requires financial support in some abstract sense that does not feel personal, but because the work of reaching chosen ones who are sitting in their cars on Tuesday afternoons, who are lying on their floors at 3 in the morning, who are pressing through seasons of waiting without anyone to name it for them. That work requires resources to sustain and to grow. If this message was worth something to you today, a contribution of any size goes directly toward ensuring that the next chosen one who needs this message most can find it when they need it. The donation link is available, and every single contribution, regardless of its size, carries the weight of the Waymaker who gave it. That is you. That is the kind of giver you are. And if the genius wave met you somewhere in the middle of this message, if the science of brainwave entrainment resonated with something you already knew about yourself, if the 7-minute threshold protocol felt like the beginning of something rather than just a technique, if Dr. Rivers' work spoke to the part of you that understands that your brain frequency is as much a part of your calling as your spirit is, then it is waiting for you. The link is in the pinned comment below. $39. 90-day money-back guarantee. One link, the one that is pinned. If it is a yes, you will know it is a yes, and the knowing is enough to act on. You have stayed through something significant today. Not just a video, a naming, a repositioning, a release. And the person who walks away from this message is not identical to the person who pressed play at the beginning. Because something was named that cannot be unnamed. Something was seen that cannot be unseen, and the appointed time does not reverse once it has arrived. All across the world, other chosen ones are walking into this exact same moment. In different time zones, in different languages, in different circumstances that share the same interior weather as yours. And every one of them who receives this message is one more strand in the rope that is being assembled across this generation. You are part of something larger than your individual waiting season. You always were. The formation was never only for you. It was for everyone whose path crosses yours in the season ahead. For everyone who will one day say that something shifted when they met you. For everyone who will walk through a door that exists because a waymaker named you walked through it first. The one standing behind you is not moving away. The one standing behind you is moving with you. Through the threshold, into the appointed time, into the full expression of everything the formation was building, into the spaciousness that was always prepared for the full version of you, into the season where the trembling of your opposition becomes the testimony of your release. Walk through, both feet head up, hands open, waymaker.